Josh Frydenberg, thanks very much for your time this afternoon. So if renewables and battery storage keep falling in price, as you've explained today they will, do they still need any sort of subsidy?
Well, look, even the Clean Energy Council themselves have talked about how renewable projects have become the most cost-effective projects to invest in and to build. That being the case, there is an obvious question about the level of subsidies that will be needed going forward. The renewable energy target was an industry policy designed to pull through renewable energy. It certainly had its flaws, but we have seen a rapid increase in renewable energies into the system, with a five-fold increase in 2016 compared to 2015. And clearly that some of the most recent deals that have been done with renewable energy, the Stockyard Hill deal in particular, which was a 530 megawatt wind farm in Victoria at just under $60 a megawatt hour, was very competitive with other kinds of technologies.
So do we need a clean energy target at all?
Well, we have said we'll respond formally before the end of the year to the 50th recommendation of the Finkel review into a clean energy target. We quickly adopted the other 49, as you know, and they're significant in terms of the reliability and the affordability of the system. But I'll be holding fire in terms of the formal response to the clean energy target recommendation.
No, I appreciate that. But from what you said in the speech today, and I quote, against the backdrop of this declining cost curve for renewables and storage, greater efficiency in thermal generation and the need for sufficient dispatchable power, it does sound like you're laying the groundwork there, making the case as to why we may not need any sort of clean energy target to incentivise more renewable investment.
Well, we need investment in the right type of energy, and one of the points I made in the speech.
What is the right type of energy?
Well, we need dispatchable energy is critical, David, and one of the...
That's where the subsidies need to go.
Well, I was making the point in the speech that until the Prime Minister put the issue of storage technologies for renewables on the policy agenda, it was absent. And that is a very important piece of the jigsaw. Snowy Hydro 2.0 being a case in point, but also the other projects that we are supporting. You see, the way to ensure a smooth transition in the energy system is to allow for more renewables to come in, but to make sure that you're not caught short without sufficient dispatchability and storage, be it batteries or be it backup gas or be it pumped hydro. That was the problem in South Australia, and the volatility in that market has been extreme, which has meant that the South Australians have paid more for their power than they should have.
After your speech, the Chief Scientist, Alan Finkel, spoke at the same event, as you know. He is still calling for a clean energy target or a similar sort of mechanism. So too the chair of the Australian Energy Regulator, Audrey Zibelman. Even your old colleague Ian Macfarlane still thinks a clean energy target's the way to go, not to mention the Business Council, the Australian Industry Group, even big companies and big emitters like BHP and so on. Have they all got it wrong?
Well, obviously the Finkel review was an extensive report undertaken by an expert panel. And that has been provided now to the COAG leaders and energy ministers, and it's been considered by the government. But what many in industry want is a degree of investment certainty so that they know what is the climate that they're investing in, particularly given that their life of their assets can be 30 to 40 years, whether it's a coal-fired power station, a gas-fired power station, or some other form of renewable generation. So obviously they would like to see stability in the investment climate. That is a separate question from the clean energy target, which, as I said, David, is being considered, and we will respond in due course.
Well, investment certainty surely is delivered by bipartisanship as well. You've got a chance for bipartisanship with a clean energy target, don't you?
Well, our focus is on getting the right policy. It always has been. That's why we've rejected some of Labor's policies before. But we want to get it right. There's too much at stake. The public expect affordable, reliable power. Clearly a lot more needs to be done to deliver that for them, and that's where our focus will be.
All right, so just to be clear on this, I know you haven't made a final decision. The clean energy target, it's not dead yet, or are you heading? Is it on life support? How would you characterise it?
Well, I'll leave that to the commentators. Other than reiterating that the market is changing dramatically, the cost curve for renewables has come down significantly. That does play into our thinking about the level of support that is required within the sector. At the same time, there is a greater emphasis on reliability than ever before, and that's because the generation mix has changed from synchronous generation from coal and gas to more intermittent source of power, namely wind and solar. We've had 10 coal-fired power stations close over the last decade, and the way the market is currently designed, we're not seeing a premium put on dispatchable power. That's what AEMO has identified, that is what Alan Finkel has identified, and that's also playing into our thinking in response to the Clean Energy Target recommendation.
And so that's clearly something you see a role for government in incentivising investment in dispatchable power.
Well, clearly we do need more investment in dispatchable power. That's what informed our discussion, David, with AGL, given the anticipated closure of Liddell scheduled for 2022. When we were told by AEMO that there would be a shortfall of 1,000 megawatts of dispatchable energy, we wanted to hear from AGL as to what other opportunities or options they would have, either for continuing the operation of that particular plant or for some other plans that they may have for dispatchable power.
All right, finally, I mean, Alan Finkel did say today that even if you had a clean, when it comes to this falling price of renewables, sure, they've come down a lot over the last 6 months. He says they may not always fall that fast, they can flatline and so on. But even if they do keep falling at really rapid rates, under a clean energy target, the certificates would also fall. So it wouldn't hurt anyone to have it in place if renewables kept getting cheaper and cheaper, would it?
Look, as I said, we will respond in due course to that final 50th recommendation of the Clean Energy Target. But the market is changing dramatically. Alan Finkel knows that. That's why his report has been so important in providing a blueprint for reform going forward. The various recommendations that we have accepted are going to be important in that respect, providing for a greater notice of closure before large-scale generators can be closed, as well as ensuring that these new forms of intermittent sources of power provide their own level of storage and backup. That's all going to be important going forward. The declining cost curve is real, and it is having an impact out there on investment decisions, and of course the government will take that into account in making a decision in response to that Clean Energy Target recommendation.
And the pressure from your backbench, including Tony Abbott, is that a factor as well?
Well, obviously I talk to all my colleagues all the time, and I have to tell you there are lots of different views about this particular sector. Everyone has a view, and that is only a reflection of the fact that this issue matters so much to people, because it hits people's business bills, it hits their household bills, and unfortunately the lowest income households are the ones that are hit the hardest, and that is why it is so important that we put in place the right reforms to deliver affordable, reliable power as we transition to a lower emissions future.
Josh Frydenberg, Minister for Energy and the Environment. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Good to be with you, David.